It's impossible not to feel joyous in this occasion, for sure. I'm just still very worried about what is to come. But yeah, I totally get why people will be excited at the prospect of being able to return to their homes, return to their country. Let's start with Syria. Syrian rebel forces have seized Damascus as the Assad regime topples. Now, this is a really interesting and, dare I say, complex situation. The morality of Assad is not complex. Assad is a brutal tyrant and also, a dog statesman in general. Can't speak for his, acumen in eye surgery. But as far as the rulership over Syria goes, not a good guy, okay? This is something that I've talked about, especially as of late, quite a bit. Having said that, however, I analyze it in a way that is not dissimilar in many respects to Saddam Hussein, because there are plenty of people. Syria is a very diverse country. There are plenty of people who have been destroyed by the brutality of the Assad regime. This much is true. But the destabilization of Syria still, at the end of the day, benefits the United States of America, okay? And we will talk in depth about all the parties involved today. I have already covered it. I have given you a little briefer, but it's a situation where it's literally like neither side is good, with the exception, I guess, of the Kurdish groups in the region. But even the Kurdish groups that are good in the region are still directly funded and trained by America. So even good groups can still be used as a weapon by the American State Department. But let's get started.
In his dynastic heartland and putative holdout on the Mediterranean coast, where they ride a statue of his father through the streets. In Hama, seized in the Assad era, or Thursday, where a reporter sheds his protective vest to embody the emergence of a new Syria. But perhaps the most instructive place to look is here, in the former regime's darkest corner. The corridors of Saidnaya prison, north of Damascus, where they killed so many thousands, they built a crematorium outside. A young child comes into view. Look at that boy, poor thing, they say. These women at the heart of a brutal...
Anyone who thinks Syria is free now is delusional. Israel's already invaded and bombed parts of southern Syria, the Greater Israel Project. Don't worry, we'll talk about it. I'm going to get
industrial oppression, being freed, being told to say God is great, not to worry about possessions, about ID cards, about where to go and how. Another prison, the same story. He says, there's no state anymore, sister. Damn the state, it's fallen. Come down, come on. Russia's foreign ministry left to confirm that Assad was now out of the country, having left instructions to transfer power peacefully. Assad's prime minister saying he will stay in Syria to hand over government functions to a transitional administration. But for now, real power rests with this man, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, leader of the Islamist HTS forces, listed as terrorists by many countries, but spearheaded the regime's collapse. For days,
he got a copy of he got a copy of Why Nations Fail from Acemoglu, the Turkish MIT guy, and he got woke. He read one copy of Why Nations Fail, and he was like, "We got to protect these institutions." Oh.
He's been talking in terms of moderation, of safeguards for minorities. Inside Damascus's Umayyad Mosque, a message of victory for Sunni Islam.
This is a new victory, my brothers, for the entire Islamic nation. Victory, my brothers, marks a new chapter in the region's history. We have avoided the dangers of leaving Syria.
Overall, is this a positive or negative? I'm gonna keep it a $150 with you. Okay, it is a very weird situation, and I don't think it will overall be positive. We'll see. But because Assad is so bad, like, there are a ton of people, especially of Sunni background, that are going to be celebrating this, understandably. Okay. There are no, I'll go so far as to say there are no clear winners in this, especially for the Syrian population, other than Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Okay. And it's really interesting to think about, because a lot of people falsely have said, I am a neo-Ottomanist, Turkish feudal warlord that wants to restore the glory of the Ottoman Caliphate. And if that was the case, then this would be the number one moment where I'm literally aligned with American State Department interests, and I could just freely talk about how incredible Erdogan is as a statesman. Okay? Because guess what? He did the damn thing. In terms of realpolitik, Recep Tayyip Erdogan came out as the number one winner of this equation, more so than even Israel. Do you understand? Like, he's had a genuinely growing and very volatile anti-Syrian, anti-refugee movement in his country. He basically gets to send a lot of, well, not even send the Syrians back. They voluntarily will go back to their homes. There are millions of Syrians living inside of Turkey, which has created a lot of anger and animosity against the Syrians in the country. He now also gets to have a major say in what happens in this, border nation. There has always been a lot of back and forth between Erdogan and Assad. If Syrians have voluntarily returned to their homes, how is this a bad thing? Oh, no, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think it's, look, no one should be forced out of their homes by a brutal regime, okay? That's why I'm saying that just like every other real movement during the Arab Spring, the Syrian revolutionary forces did not start at an incorrect starting point. There was a very valid reason for people to rise up against the Assad regime. As is the case globally, very quickly, I think other regional operatives, whether it be Russia that came to defend Syria, whether it be Iran that came to defend the Syrian regime, or whether it be America and America's obviously number one ally in the region, Turkey, and also Israel, that took advantage of the instability and used it to shove their own actors into the equation to suit their own interests. It will, however, never not be funny to me, someone growing up in the United States of America now for the past 10 years, to see a former Al-Qaeda leader get this much positive coverage. In my opinion, this is so close to the Afghan Civil War, like in the ways that the American State Department operated there, and the valid reasons as to why many Muslims in Afghanistan were understandably against the USSR-aligned Afghan government at the time. It is damn near identical. And I think we know what happened in the aftermath of arming and offering logistical support to the brave Mujahideen. It is wild to me that we are once again doing the exact same thing. Now, I have no good solutions to this. I do not know what the best pathway forward for Syria is. But the only thing I will say is that it is understandable that the Syrians that were victim to the brutalities of the Assad regime are celebrating. Having said that, those who have quote unquote liberated Syria from the throes of Assad's brutal regime are unfortunately not great either. Are you also very concerned about Turkey taking its influence over the victorious rebel factions and turning them against the Kurds? I think either it's going to be a balkanization that is still pieced up by the Western forces. Israel will also have a say. I don't suspect Turkey like just straightforwardly pummeling the Kurdish groups in the region. And if they do, that will still be at the behest of America. We shall see.
As a playground for Iranian ambitions, spreading sectarianism and corruption.
The Assad family's home, the vast presidential palace, now a site for a sort of revolutionary tourism, an opportunity to reclaim some of the regime's ill-gotten gains.
Victory to Syria. Syria remains and Assad is in hell, in the dustbin of history.
But for millions of Syria's displaced, it's their own homes they're desperate to reclaim. So often these roads have been clogged with those fleeing to safety. Now the polarity has been reversed. Hope embodied in a traffic jam. But still plenty of space for fear of what's to follow. Already there's been fighting between rival rebel groups in the north, the Turkish-backed Syrian National Army taking the town of Manbij from the US-backed.
Remember when they were saying to me in the chat, like, oh, the Turkish-backed Syrian National Army, like, they're not, you're wrong. Turkey is not a player in this. Like, come on, dog. It's about to get, in my opinion, it's about to get more somehow. I'm a Syrian Christian, just hoping whatever it is next for the country, my people won't be persecuted, to be honest. Yeah. See, that's the other side of this. The other side of this is also that, first of all, let me just say one thing. I think that Russia is so busy in Ukraine that they could not offer any sort of material support to Syria. But I don't even know if they wanted to. I think that I suspect that Putin wanted Erdogan to make inroads with the Assad regime, and Assad refused, partially because they don't suspect Erdogan to be anything but a person who is operating at the behest of Western interests. Virtually every other group in the region that could offer some kind of support, virtually every other group in the region that could offer any support, like Hezbollah, for example, has been destabilized and is now more focused on rebuilding Lebanon after Israel pummeled southern Lebanon. And all of the axis of resistance against Israel in the region is licking their wounds and trying to reconstruct. And Iran is spread too thin. This created an opportunity for all of the cells that are anti-Assad, that range from secular forces, ethnic Kurdish militias, Marxist-Leninist forces, all the way to the Salafists, former Al-Qaeda and former ISIS operatives, and Turkish-backed Salafists to take advantage of this opportunity and seemingly take over Syria in a matter of a week. That is precisely what happened here. I am fearful of what will happen to the many different ethnic minorities, ranging from Kurdish people to the Shia population to the Christians, especially under the Assyrians, especially under the rulership of, I mean, straight up Al-Qaeda. Like, these guys are former Al-Qaeda leaders. And if you listen to what they have to say, even the Salafists that are under the training of the Turkish government, like, make no mistake, like, some of the stuff that they're talking about is still very much global jihad. So it's a terrifying prospect. So I don't know what will happen. I hope that, stop being over dramatic. It's impossible not to see random people being released from prison and the celebration that creates, that you know, the celebration that invokes. Okay, it's a good thing objectively. I am not of the mindset that, like, every single person that was imprisoned by the Assad government was a ISIS terrorist or whatever. Okay, that's ridiculous. There are so many people who were falsely imprisoned. Having said that, however, the very fact that the major forces here, like major players in the coalition, being former Al-Qaeda leadership, I think it's understandable for me to demonstrate some level of concern, especially for all of the non-Sunni Syrian populations and even the Sunni Syrian populations. As a matter of fact, there is a reason why Hamas originally was in favor of toppling the Assad government, despite the fact that they literally operated in the way that they operate out of Doha right now. They used to operate out of Damascus. Okay? Because there was a valid reason for the uprising against Assad. But if you are to expect me to sit here and be like, this is going to be fantastic for Syrians because the major coalition head, who was a former Al-Qaeda guy, is now saying, oh, that was just a phase. It's hard for me to believe that. And this is before we even get to Israel in the equation as well. While the Assad regime is not exactly pro-Palestine and hasn't been for quite a while, Syria provided a logistical hub for the axis of resistance in the region. And it was a shaky allegiance that they had, specifically with the Iranian government, but it was still a logistical hub nonetheless. a logistical hub for Hezbollah, and a logistical hub for Iran in general. The Kurdish movement said they're ready to open discussions with all the forces. You are a little bit underestimating the capacity of Syrian people to organize. HTS are less radical than before, even from 2018, and not only after U.S. backup. They did that to get international sympathy for only after Assad order, and they got that. Did you see the Saydana prison? Yeah, I'm gonna cover the Saydana prison as well. That part is really insane. Saydana prison apparently has, it's like a fresh hell. They have, that's the one with the multiple floors that are impossible to reach at this point, right? Look, I question anyone that says like HTS is reformed. I don't think it's only time will tell. I am very skeptical. We shall see. Having said that, however, yeah, there are literally multiple basement floors of the prison, inside of the prison complex, that are impossible to open up unless you have someone from the Assad regime. Syria, mind-blowing figure circulating about the Saydnaya prison in Damascus. The complex was believed to have up to 20,000 detainees, but the red building itself, photo, is said to have more than double. Some levels still haven't been reached. There are several floors under the Saydnaya prison which couldn't be reached so far due to the special unique security mechanisms. This is the red building. It's the section dedicated to civilians arrested by Assad's regime since 2011. There are moments who left the prison who thought that the former Assad was still in charge. Like they just don't know what is going on. After over 10 hours of work, the doors of the red prison of Saydnaya are finally broken. New waves of detainees are being liberated. The man filming, looking for his family while documenting this. How could we believe this is happening? Yeah, there were prisoners who have been in there for so long they thought they were being liberated by Saddam's army. Like, it's insane. I think it's important to note that the Turkish HTS is different from the Syrian Free Army, which captured Damascus. The latter is directly funded by America, whereas the former is indirectly through Turkey. Bottom line is they are distinct groups, and history suggests infighting may occur when there's a vacuum, so I don't think this spells the end of the civil war. Yeah, I don't think so either. Rarely ever do you have so much sectarian infighting amongst groups that are also directly being funded on either directly or indirectly through a regional ally like Turkey, still funded by, the American State Department. Bazı tutukların akıllı telefonun ne olduğunu bilmeyi belirtiliyor. They're saying that detainees don't even know what a smartphone is. 8 years ago, Amnesty reported that prisoners were being left without food for days, sometimes even weeks. People are tortured and beaten for hours without breaks, sometimes every single day. Many die and are left to rot in crowded cells, while others are alive with diseases spreading. I think there's like a child that was born in the prison or something too. It was like saying, I don't know. This is like, some of it is fog of war stuff. It is a fresh hell for sure. And it's impossible not to, look at these images and think, this is a bad thing. It is a good thing. Out, you're free, out. Bashar al-Assad has fallen. I need my ID. You don't need ID. The checkpoints are gone. I'm from Homs. He's liberated too. Then on men's level, what about the women? The women are out. Don't worry. The son of a gone. Yeah, not to lighten the mood at all and make this silly, but yeah, it is like impel down. It's a fresh hell, literally. We'll look at what Sina Tusi had to say about this. But yeah, I am not an Assadist, and all memes aside about talking about the line of Damascus or whatever. It's silly that people. I think being an Assadist is like being someone who's pro-Putin, where it's just campish shit overall. Having said that, however, I am still very skeptical over what will happen in Syria, because it's not like I'm pro-America or pro-Turkey either in the region. And I fear that the Syrian people will still continue to suffer, and there will most likely still be a lot of ethnic strife and a lot of infighting.
And Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces. And while Kurds further east celebrate stunning gains over Assad and Iranian-backed forces, fears here about the potential for ISIS to gain ground.
We will also continue to maintain our presence in eastern Syria, which is solely to ensure the enduring defeat of ISIS and has nothing to do with other aspects of this conflict.
And rebel forces have entered Tartus, home to one of Russia's 2 Syrian naval bases. What now for Moscow's foothold on the Mediterranean? What now for the many regime loyalists here fearing reprisals? From the occupied Golan Heights, Israel's Prime Minister claiming credit for events in Syria. The result, he says, of blows dealt to Hezbollah and Iran. Israel sending forces
Reddit has gone full pro HTS because of Putin is wild to see, man. Yeah, it's especially wild to see because like the guys that like HTS represents exactly the type of dudes that the average American thinks is like, you know, the jihadists, like all Muslims are like that. HTS is, you know, originally a global jihad organization, or at least like, you know, the guy is Al-Qaeda. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's so crazy when they like, when they point to Hamas, like Reddit points to Hamas and says like, these are Salafist jihadists, like these are scary guys. And then when there are people who literally have done the, you know, beheadings of Christian people and like that, all of a sudden they're like, no, we're with those guys because everybody told us that those guys are good. It's kind of wild how big of a demonstration of the power of manufactured consent is in this story. He was in every Islamist group on earth. What Al-Jilani has done what Al-Jilani has to do for you to be more charitable to him, brother, I'm sorry. There is no, I don't think there's anything he can do. Just step aside, you know? It's like, this is it for me. Especially as listen, for me, there's a couple things where it's like, if you got this in your resume, it's virtually impossible for me to ever think that you are going to be a good guy. Like if you're the emir of the Al-Nusra Front, okay? Like if you got this in your resume, former Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, Mujahideen Shura Council, Islamic State of Iraq, the Al-Nusra Front. This guy's on the terror watch list for America since like in perpetuity. It's crazy. It's hard, man. It's hard for me to trust the dude who has spent most of his career in ISIS adjacent groups. All right, let's continue with this video.
Into the UN buffer zone. Syrians know all too well the perils of this moment, but across the country, they're choosing to focus on its
reading the board game Settlers of Catan by Jay Sakai.
Potential. Nowhere more so than here in Damascus.
Funny how you trust Wikipedia. Oh my lord. No, it is way too complex for you to... Wait, what? I'm sorry that I'm covering the... Yeah, it is over your head. Okay, come in and say hi. There's some historical irony in the IDF. Entrance into Quneitra, the old city of Quneitra, is a thriving cosmopolitan city. Capital of Golan was occupied in 1967 and immediately cleansed. Jumped in 1974's disengagement between Golda and Hafez. And Quneitra was set to return to Syria. What does Israel do? Destroy the city. Blow everything up. Gone. Arab papers called it the Hiroshima of the Middle East. Old Quneitra remains empty to this day. Here we are 50 years later.
I can't believe you would, as a Syrian.
Oh, yeah, guys. Austin has revealed himself as a Syrian.
No, basically, my family comes from the part of Lebanon that was Syria.
This motherfucker just wants to be...
I'm Lebanese, but they come from the part of Lebanon that was Syria, but it became Lebanon. Anyway, I'm just saying hi and bye. I'm going to leave because I thought we were going to do a Sunday fun day, but evidently not.
I mean, we could do the...
I mean, I won't even be...
How long are you here?
Like, I'm not going to be here for that long. It's all good. No, hey, you know what? It's fine. I'll be back next weekend.
You son of... I mean,
look, no, I don't want to disrupt your flow. This is obviously something that everybody wants to...
Well, I was going to say is like, if you want to wait a little bit, we can get back to Fit review.
Wait, you were doing Fit reviews?
I didn't do it. I'm saying I will though.
No, I have to go like in 30 minutes anyway, so I'm just going to go now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I just popped in. Hey, you know what? It's okay. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and that's okay. I'm going with the flow. I'm off my Prilosec.
You're such a ridiculous person.
We'll see you next weekend.
All right. Peace. I'm not going to kiss him goodbye.
Damascus, and a young couple experiencing the revolutionary version of a shotgun wedding.
It's the most beautiful moment of our lives, and because we won't experience this joy twice, I decided my wedding would be today, on 8/12/2024, a date we'll remember. It's an unforgettable day we'll teach our...
Okay, this is like totally random and not the main point, but I do hate that people still shoot guns into the air to celebrate. Is so bad. It's such a bad practice that needs to be abolished in its entirety because it's so dangerous. Every time I see that, I'm like, dude, those bullets land, dog, and it literally kills people. It's so dangerous. Not the point here at all, but I hate seeing it. I'm like, oh, it's so unimaginably dangerous, dog. It is so dangerous. No, they're not firing blanks, brother. They're firing real bullets. You're being the too woke friend right now. Listen, if that's the one time where I'm the friend who's too woke, then so be it. Straight up. I think it's one of the worst practices. One of the worst practices. It is so goddamn dangerous, and people get killed all the time, or at least injured all the time. Okay? Sorry, call me woke. It's just, it literally is a thing I cannot stand.
Children about.
Just what will this day come to signify? A question perhaps for Syria's as yet unborn generation.
Harry Fawcett reporting. Well, ruling Syria was a family business for the Assads that began in 1971. Here, Edward Heath was prime minister at the time. First Hafez, the father, and then Bashar, the son, who became the heir apparent after his...
Yeah, this is funny. Dude, every day there's a new Jawlani statement. It's so funny. He said, new Ahmed al-Shara Jawlani statement. To all the military forces in the city of Damascus, it is strictly forbidden to approach public institutions, which will remain under the supervision of the former prime minister until they are officially handed over. And it is also forbidden to fire bullets in the air. Interestingly, when it was first written, it said Al-Rais and not Al-Qaid, but then quickly edited. Very interesting. Yeah. Even woke-ass Jelani's like, bro, we can't do that. We can't be doing that. That is not good. Anyway.
His older brother died in a car accident in 1994. The Assad family survived the Cold War, multiple regional wars, and a civil war. But in the end, they couldn't survive the distraction of Russia in Ukraine and Iran and Hezbollah facing off against Israel.
The President of Syria and Mrs. al-Assad, Your Majesty.
Once upon a time in 2002, Assad, the former eye doctor, and his wife, the doctor's daughter from Acton. The young
Al-Rais means the president, and Al-Qaid means the commander.
President of Syria was someone that many thought they could do business with.
Syria is going to be an important part of building a peaceful and stable future in the Middle East.
I was there.
The First Lady of Syria was so
Yeah, Asma is a baddie, straight up. Like,
unlike any other in the region that Vogue called her the Rose of the
no wonder Assad was a wife guy. Like,
desert and put her on the cover. The Assad family became pin-ups of bliss and normality. But family history told a different story. Bashir's father, Hafez, who came from the small Alawite minority, had ruled Syria with an iron fist for over a quarter of a century. He was respected in Moscow and Washington and feared at home. And a decade after the son took power, the Arab Spring came to Syria and the other side of Assad's character came to the fore.
there's a TOS here.
In Deraa in the southwest, the regime shot dozens as ordinary citizens echoed the cries of freedom from Tunisia, Egypt and Libya. The former eye surgeon became blind to the suffering of his own people, inflicted by him and his henchmen. In his prisons, torture, including of children, became the norm, and hundreds of thousands of civilians disappeared. The catalogue of brutality mounted, as did the bodies, almost 500,000.
Hillary Clinton probably has the same kill count of Jelani, and you still give her a chance and even a vote. Al-Qaeda can also become tepid neoliberals too, can't they? I feel like Hillary Clinton's kill count might be higher overall. I mean, but it's a wild thing to present Hillary Clinton as the, it's a wild thing to present Hillary Clinton here, considering who's backing Jelani. I saw this as well. This account is like not great, but this is from the interview that he conducted, where she asked him, Jelani, like the killings in Iraq at the base of Al-Qaeda, like, what do you have to say to that? And his response is like, bygones be bygones type shit, that we were young, something along those lines. It's in the playlist.
It was military help from some powerful friends. First, neighboring Iran. The Shia power helping Assad's Alawite Shiite minority. Here, Iran's pin-up commander Qasem Soleimani addressed the troops fighting the Syrian rebels before he was killed by an airstrike ordered by President Trump. And then there was Moscow, whose planes and helicopter gunships ruled from the Syrian air. Putin and Assad had both taken power in 2000. They believed themselves indispensable to the rule that keeps or kept their country together, and increasingly their end justified some brutal means. Syria's civil war exported its consequences. 7 million ended up on the refugee trail in Turkey and Lebanon, and in 2015 on the long trek to Europe. Many of them heading to Germany, huddled masses triggering unintended consequences inside the EU. The rise of the anti-immigrant far right, breathing life into Germany's AfD. New life into France's Marine Le Pen. More life and power into Hungary's Viktor Orban. And even providing Farage's Brexit campaign with perhaps its most powerful, if misleading, poster. President Assad was kept in power by Iran and Russia, and with one distracted by a standoff with Israel and the other by war in Ukraine, they threw him under the bus this week, leaving his country up for grabs. Whoever ends up ruling Syria, and however, the next few months are bound to show once again that what happens in Syria doesn't stay in Syria. Well, with Assad gone and the country in the hands of different groups...
Putin sold him out. I mean, I think Putin's relationship with Assad was always a strategic one. It wasn't like they were super on board with one another regardless. Plus, he has his hands full with the whole invading and bombing the out of Ukraine situation. That's not even true. Assad is in Russia. No, I know, but historically speaking, I don't think that Putin was always on board. And not only that, but also just because he's in Russia right now doesn't change that dynamic at all. Russia utilizes Syria. It has regional interests. It also wants to. Russia is anti-America at every step, and it uses Syrian naval bases as well. I think Russia had too much focus and resources in Ukraine and would have spared stuff if he could have saved his air base and naval base in Tartus and Latakia. Yeah.
Groups of rebels. What now for the future of Syria? A little earlier, I spoke to the Syrian columnist and foreign policy expert, Dr. Hyde. He's a consulting fellow.
Shut the up. This dude's name is not Hyde.
At the think tank Chatham House in London. And I began by asking him if he thought that Assad's downfall was made possible by his allies being distracted with other wars.
So if you look at Russia's position, has moved most of its equipment as well as personnel away from Syria because of the war in Ukraine. And it was difficult for them to then allocate the resources needed for Assad to be able to stop opposition fighters. And I think for the Russians, it was sort of their calculations that we have invested all this money and the regime has not been able to fight back, so why would we just go ahead and then repeat the same mistakes again? For Iran, it was a similar situation, especially since Hezbollah, its main arm, not only in the Middle East, but in Syria, which contributed to the protection of the regime for years, is now completely distracted in its own war with Israel.
And so what happens now? Because there are so many different rebel forces, from Kurdish separatists to, Islamists of different, levels of extremism that have converged on the big cities. Who's going to actually run the place now?
Syrians are celebrating today. I think many are trying to figure out what tomorrow holds. The problem right now is, as you mentioned, you have rebel groups, different ones, not only the ones who started the fight, but then you have local armed groups who then also started their own fights in order to liberate their areas from the regime. This is what complicates the situation. How will then the political opposition that is now entering negotiations with different groups will be able to then establish not only contact but influence over the groups that are controlling the territories on the ground, and who will be able to then determine who will have the biggest say in what the transitioning body would look like.
I mean, given the state of the Middle East at the moment, if Syria implodes or becomes chaotic, or there's another kind of civil war that results from this, what are the consequences going to be for the region?
Big consequences. You have the most obvious one will be the new flow of refugees to neighboring countries and potentially to Europe and elsewhere. Then you have the security element, then you have clashes maybe not only being contained to Syria, but involving other countries, groups even operating from Syria against other countries or carrying out attacks. Then you have the ISIS sort of threat. The group has been gaining sort of more resources as well as carrying out more attacks in Syria, and this would create a golden opportunity for the group to be able to just carry out attacks not only in Syria but elsewhere as well.
Of course, power is changing, including in Washington. Mr. Trump takes over at the end of January. I mean, does he have any impact on this new reality in the Middle East?
I think it does. The most obvious one is that most of the influential policymakers in the Biden administration, they have already moved on. They have secured other jobs or in the process of securing other jobs. So there is no one left to really look at what's happening in Syria and then try to play the leadership role that the US has usually played.
Finally, and very briefly, is Iran one of the principal backers of the Assad regime? Are they the biggest losers in this, and what consequences will that have for them?
I think it's safe to say that Iran will be the biggest loser. It seems that Iran will not be able to secure any of its interest in Syria. If you look at what they have been trying to use Syria for over the past years, is one, to continue to supply Hezbollah with weapons, and no matter who basically rules Damascus, it will be difficult for them to allow that, mainly due to the role that Hezbollah has played in killing Syrians across the country.
Is this from Financial Times? Oh, it is. Okay. Financial Times, consistently the best reporting, straight up. I would say, especially since October 7th, Financial Times has become, I think, the best in terms of its coverage. Iran was done with Bashar al-Assad. It seems like there isn't any love lost. One Iranian insider accuses the Assad regime of leaking the positions of the Iranian military commanders. The insider said there had been long-standing frustration with Assad and Tehran for more. I mean, the thing is, like, I don't think anybody likes Assad. Like, I don't even think Russia likes Assad, even though they're offering him shelter, because there's a use for Assad. They can use him as a bargaining chip. For more than a year, it was clear as time had passed, he had become an obstacle, a liability. Some even called him a betrayer. His inaction cost us dearly, and he aligned himself with regional actors who promised him a future that never materialized. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, Iran, Turkey, and Russia issue a joint statement calling for an end to the military combat in Syria and a political solution. I think they're going for a managed transition. We are coordinating to find a political solution to the crisis in Syria. The meeting of ministers stressed the importance of strengthening joint international efforts to increase humanitarian aid to the Syrian people. At long last, the Assad regime has fallen. The fall of this regime is a fundamental act of justice. It is a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their country. It is also a moment of risk and uncertainty. Yeah, I saw this tweet from Trump, which is definitely not from Trump. Opposition fighters in Syria, in an unprecedented move, have totally taken over numerous cities in a highly coordinated offensive and are now on the outskirts of Damascus, obviously preparing to make a very big move towards taking out Assad. Russia, because they are so tied up in Ukraine and with the loss there of over 600,000 soldiers, seems incapable of stopping this literal march through Syria, a country they have protected for years. This is where former President Obama refused to honor his commitment of protecting the red line in the sand, as all hell broke out with Russia stepping in. But now they are, like possibly Assad himself, being forced out. And it may actually be the best thing that can happen to them. There was never much of a benefit in Syria for Russia, other than that to make Obama look really stupid. In any event, Syria is a mess, but it's not our friend, and the United States should have nothing to do with it. This is not our fight. Let it play out. Do not get involved. Dog, what are you saying? This is such a funny take from Trump. This is not our fight. It's like, okay, I don't know about that.
For decades.
Dr. Haidai, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thousands of Syrians displaced during the civil war after enduring often long and perilous journeys ended up settling right here in the UK. So today, many were out celebrating the fall of the regime that uprooted their lives in gatherings across the country. Some hope to return to Syria one day, but there's anxiety and hope that the news is not too good to be true. Francis Reid reports from one of the rallies in Trafalgar Square.
Celebration after so many sleepless nights. watching events unfold from 3,000 miles away. All those here in Trafalgar Square see the events of the last few days.
What is this? Why? You're going to say it's complicated? 36-month subscriber. Libers is complicated. Why? Can't answer. Wait, what? Jesus Christ. Just say who's siding with Israel. Who's supporting Israel and Israel's interest in the region? The rebels or Assad? Here's the problem. Okay, I'm going to untime you out. While yes, Assad has provided logistical support to the axis of resistance in the region, something that I openly mentioned, is not exactly, they weren't exactly wonderful allies to the Palestinians in general. Now, there were some personal reasons for why they were not. Historically speaking, they were much more interested in offering not only logistical support, but also directly allowing Hamas to operate inside of Damascus. Having said that, however, two things are still true. Assad was pretty bad at governance and very ruthless, very brutal. And yes, this absolutely benefits Israel. 1,000,000%. Of course it does. We haven't even gotten to that part of the equation yet. Do you think I'm not going to cover the reality that Israel has already made its territorial ambitions and its security concerns known? Kind of a big deal. And yes, Jelani has said that the West is not our enemy and that Israel is not their enemy either. After all, Israel itself had worked in the past with al-Nusra. Senior administration officials briefed reporters on Syria. The SAO called the CENTCOM strike today on ISIS significant, with B-52s, F-15s, and A-10s dropping 140 munitions on 75 different targets in the Badia Desert. Today, there happened to be a broad gathering across a broad area, the official said, describing it as a part of a pattern of strikes against ISIS meetings and training that would continue. Despite rumors to the contrary, the SAO said, "We did not get any serious outreach from Assad, nor would we have considered it." The official would not say whether the administration planned to lift the foreign terrorist designation on HTS and its leader Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, but suggested the designation was not preventing the U.S. from engaging with the group. "We intend to engage with them appropriately," the official said. "We have contact with all Syrian groups." The official said the regime's chemical weapons were something we are very focused on. "We do have good fidelity on this type of thing." And he said, "I would not envision a scenario of U.S. boots on the ground to neutralize the weapons." The official described its national security posture in dire terms. "The entire Iranian-backed artifice in the region, the brittleness, the weakness, the hollowing out, has completely changed the equation in the Middle East. It has lost its main proxy group, its entire military capacity destroyed. They have no strategic air defense, and they can't produce missiles." But he acknowledged it wasn't clear whether that would push Iran towards diplomacy or a decision to build a nuclear weapon. "If they were ever to make a fateful decision towards a nuclear weapon, we will not allow it." The ISIS fight moving forward. There are already clashes between Turkish-backed. So this is the other part that is going to make things interesting. The ISIS fight moving forward. There are already clashes between Turkish-backed HTS and US-backed, mostly Kurdish SDF in Manjib in northwest Syria. Remember how I talked about the both sides being US-backed to varying degrees? It's American-backed forces fighting against other American-backed forces by way of Turkey. And I don't even know if it's the HTS that's fighting. I don't know why they're saying it's the HTS that's fighting. This is the Foreign Affairs and Defense correspondent for PBS. I don't think it's HTS that's fighting the Kurdish SDF. I think it is rather the Turkish-backed forces in the region, the Syrian National Army, the SNA. The SAO said that a handful of senior officials have been speaking to their Turkish counterparts to try and deconflict. Additional fronts opening up, not in anyone's interest. Opposition groups need to work together. Some troops fighting ISIS in Badia were Assad's forces. The SAO said that as they peeled out, SDF filled some of that space. And the U.S. also helped coordinate safe passage of tens of thousands of civilians. Civilians from west to east. Yeah, Pentagon-backed groups versus CIA-backed groups versus Turkish-backed groups, read NATO American-backed groups. Yeah. SDF commander Mazlum Abdi says they are in contact with HTS and have not clashed with them. So HTS is Al-Qaeda, former Al-Qaeda, I apologize. And I think this reporter is incorrect when he says Turkish-backed HTS and US-backed, mostly Kurdish SDF are fighting. I don't think that that's correct. I think he made a mistake. He meant Turkish-backed SNA because, yes, the Turkish-backed forces, the Turkish-backed coalition forces are definitely, they have additional interests in mind.
As the liberation of Syria. A chance for change and maybe the possibility for those who want to return to do so. Mayor al-Bakr.
Oh, Urgent. The Washington Post, citing a senior U.S. administration official, we do not rule out removing Hayat Tahrir al-Sham from the terrorist list.
Is a political activist who fled Aleppo in 2015 after government forces came knocking on his door.
I have a mixed feeling. I didn't sleep for the last 2 days. I was just watching the news every single moment, waiting for this moment. We are in a very historical moment. We have so much hope, we hope for better future for Syria.
Then there's Abdul Karim, a neurosurgeon whose 2 little girls were born in exile.
We've been really displaced again and again. So my first daughter was born in Turkey, my second daughter was born in London, and I can't believe that this moment, that we've been waiting for this moment for not only 14 years, I would say for 54 years, Syrians are waiting for this moment. So I really can't describe how I feel, happiness, optimism, definitely, but really a promise that we will go back to build our country.
A new generation hoping to get to know Syria for the first time.
I don't remember anything of my country, so being able to see my country for practically the first time would be absolutely amazing. I'll get to see all my relatives back home. I'll be really happy, really excited.
Some 20,000 Syrian refugees were resettled in the UK between
It's impossible not to feel joyous in this occasion, for sure. I'm just still very worried about what is to come. But yeah, I totally get why people will be excited at the prospect of being able to return to their homes, return to their country.
2014 and 2020. Many of them never wanted to leave their homes and never imagined that they'd be living here now. And that's why across the UK, so many turned out today, including in Manchester. In West London, Syrian and Iraqi Christians came together to worship. For those in the Syrian Orthodox Church, they hope that reassurances that all will be protected will be honoured in the mosaic of faiths that make up Syria. Do you think many Syrians who moved to the UK will now want to return to Syria?
I think our people, they will have to wait to see what will happen. If safe, democratic, yes, I think majority that return, because our country is beautiful. Sunshine, weather, food, everything is our country.
Rula, a primary school teacher, grew up in a neighbourhood where all faiths live side by side.
Mixed emotions, I would say, at the moment. We just want the safety for people, regardless the faith, regardless the religion, regardless the beliefs.
So many have made their lives here in the UK while watching the horrors of war unfold for their families over the last decade. All while conflicts in the wider region and geopolitics of the biggest players buffeted the possibility for peace and fated their futures. There is still anxiety for Syrian communities in the UK, of course, but now also hope that all Syrians' prayers will be answered.